Okay, imagine if I told you that intelligence agencies literally know how to create a murderer using just 3 psychological triggers. I know, it sounds totally like a movie plot, but it's actually based on very real, very heavily documented behavioral science. Today, we're basically transforming this explainer into a classified operative training manual for everyday life. We are going to decode the exact behavioral tactics used by top interrogators, brainwashing experts, and former CIA operatives to read, influence, and just completely master human interactions.
So here is our roadmap for today. 1. Reading the invisible signs. 2. The CIA rapport hack. 3. The art of interrogation. 4. Hypnosis and mind control. And finally, 5. The architecture of confidence. Let's get into it.
All right, part 1. Reading the invisible signs, or as I like to call it, spotting the mammalian brain's tells.
To really read human beings, you have to understand that we're essentially just reading the primitive mammalian brain. This is the part of us that governs survival instincts, and it leaks our true emotions way before we ever speak a single word. To see this in action, I want you to think about a time you were suddenly stressed out. You might not have realized it in the moment, but you physically shift. You probably felt that visceral tension creeping right up into your shoulders. Maybe your breathing got a little shallow, while your eyes do something even more predictable. In a normal, relaxed conversation, the baseline human blink rate is about 15 to 17 blinks per minute. And this baseline, it's your absolute most reliable stress indicator.
When we contrast the extremes here, it unlocks an absolute superpower. So, a high blink rate, say someone suddenly jumps up to blinking 80 times a minute, that is a massive red flag for high stress. Conversely, if that blink rate plummets down to just 3 or 4 times per minute, you're looking at intense, locked-in focus. A truly skilled speaker or negotiator can scan a room, instantly spot exactly who is stressed out and who is focused, and then adjust their delivery on the fly. Maybe they raise their voice a bit or pivot the subject to actively recapture the audience's attention. It's a real game changer.
Now, moving down the face, let's look at the mouth. Lip compression is exactly what it sounds like. It's squeezing the lips together tightly. When you see this happen, especially right after a specific topic is brought up, it almost universally indicates a withheld opinion. It's a totally crucial data point. It's basically the other person's mammalian brain telling you they are holding something back, which lets you know exactly when you should strategically drop a topic or when you need to dig a little deeper.
Now contrast that with lip retraction. This is where the lip is actually pulled back past the barrier of the teeth, kind of like you're biting the inside of your lip. While compression means an opinion is being withheld, retraction signals a subconscious need for reassurance. Knowing exactly what to look for between these two expressions, that gives you a massive, massive advantage when you're navigating any sort of delicate negotiation or pitch.
Okay, let's move to part 2 and see how this builds. The CIA rapport hack, which is all about achieving informational superiority. This is a technique straight from a former CIA operative, and it's designed to rapidly build deep trust and influence entirely without you having to reveal a single thing about yourself. The hack is honestly incredibly simple, and it just runs in a repeating 3-step loop. First, you ask a question. Second, you ask a follow-up question based on whatever their answer was. And third, you make a validating statement about their ideas. By simply validating someone's reality like this, you actually trigger a massive dopamine rush in their brain. It literally makes them feel important, highly interesting, and completely safe around you.
But here is the kind of twisted side of this technique. The human brain is so deeply charmed by someone reflecting its reality and just holding space for it that people won't even realize you haven't shared a single fact about yourself. You end up establishing this profound connection, all while maintaining total informational superiority. They feel perfectly comfortable with you, yet you remain a complete mystery.
Which perfectly transitions us to part 3, the art of interrogation, kindness over cruelty.
We've all seen the Hollywood movies where physical torture is used to extract information, right? Well, behavioral experts and history tell us the exact opposite is true. During World War II, there was a German interrogator named Hans Scharf who conclusively proved that kindness is infinitely more effective than cruelty. Why? Because kindness keeps targets out of their basic survival mode. If they're in survival mode, they're just going to make up lies to stop the pain. So, how do the pros actually do it? They use carefully constructed language, like the bait question. Instead of asking a direct accusatory question like, "Were you there?" an interrogator will ask, "Is there any reason a video camera in that store would have you on tape?" This is brilliant phrasing because it corners the suspect without outright accusing them. It literally forces a liar to instantly adapt their story to the possibility of evidence, which almost always reveals their deception.
Now, once guilt is suspected, the interrogator deploys this exact 5-step monologue. First, they socialize to build a baseline of comfort. Then, they minimize the severity of the crime. Next, they rationalize why anyone in the world would have done it. Fourth, they project the blame onto outside circumstances. And finally, they offer an alternative question like, look, was this some huge sinister plot or just a simple everyday mistake? This entirely offloads the suspect's shame and internal pressure, making a confession seem like the safest, most logical way out of that room.
Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is how intense it gets. Part 4, Hypnosis and Mind Control, the Dark Arts.
We are shifting right into the extreme end of behavioral science here. And to be clear, these aren't cheap party tricks. They are systematic, proven methods for bypassing the conscious mind and plugging directly into the mammalian brain. Experts have identified 6 key factors required to successfully hypnotize or deeply influence someone: focus, openness, connection, suggestibility, compliance, and expectancy. And get this for a wild physiological tell. Behavioral analysts have actually found that remarkably smooth lower eyelids can sometimes indicate a high natural level of suggestibility in a person. It's crazy.
But here is the genuinely chilling truth derived from historical behavioral studies. You don't even need all 6 of those factors to make someone commit the unthinkable. As was proven by the famous Milgram experiment, you literally only need 3: focus, suggestibility, and compliance, assuming they're paired with perceived authority. Under those specific conditions, completely ordinary people were successfully convinced to inflict lethal harm on others in under an hour.
This works because of what we call the PCP framework. Influence at this extreme level involves modifying a person's perception, which in turn radically changes the context of the situation. Once that context is shifted, say by framing a violent act as a totally necessary defense, the brain finally grants permission to do things it would normally completely reject. Historically speaking, the intelligence community has tested the absolute limits of interrogative suggestibility using these exact concepts. We're talking about programs like the CIA's MKUltra, which included Project Midnight Climax and various Canadian experiments. These involved dosing unwitting subjects with massive amounts of LSD. The objective here was simply to see if extreme chemical intervention could crack the human mind and force compliance, or even erase memories entirely. And this brilliantly illustrates why we need to move to Part 5, the architecture of confidence, and moving beyond hierarchy.
Understanding all these dark mechanisms we just talked about is vital, purely so you can protect yourself and master your own mind, which needs to operate completely beyond any social hierarchy. True confidence actually manifests physically first. We call this the truth plane. When you speak with your arms relaxed and your palms open, right around navel height, you are subconsciously signaling to the other person's mammalian brain that you are completely non-threatening and highly trustworthy. It is literally the physical opposite of covering yourself up in fear.
But to actually internalize that physical confidence, it requires a massive perspective shift. True confidence is absolutely not about believing you're better than anyone else in the room. The crucial point to take away from this is that true confidence is the radical willingness to be judged. It's about developing a profound comfort with the possibility of social injury, accepting that you might be embarrassed, you might be judged, and knowing deep down you'll be completely fine regardless. So the ultimate test of this non-hierarchical confidence really comes down to one question. Are you willing to treat a billionaire and an Uber driver exactly the same? Because think about it. If your confidence fluctuates based on who happens to be standing in front of you, well, that isn't confidence. It's just a reaction to status. Master that, and I promise you, you master any room you walk into. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you all in the next one.